I am probably going to write a story about this for the blog, but I'm going to read you the first draft because this is 12 things that aren't happening with the A's, Bally's Corp, and the Tropicana site. I might go to 15 for the blog, or I might do 10, whatever. You let me know. You give me feedback because you're so great at giving me feedback. I think you've literally never given me feedback. The only one who gives me feedback is the troll who keeps giving me 1-star reviews on iTunes. So that whereas my rating would typically be 9 out of 5, I think it's 1.2. So in the months that we haven't communicated for whatever reason, you're mysterious. There has been some discussion of a Major League Baseball team, the A's, formerly the Oakland A's, moving to Las Vegas, hypothetically. The mainstream media has consistently reported how great everything is, how things are moving forward as planned, how financing's in place, how the A's are optimistic. Bally's Corp is optimistic. They're going to build 3 towers. The A's are going to get financing from investors. Blada, blada, blue. Okay? What I like to call horse shit. Mom, sorry about the rough language. It happens sometimes when you're dealing with knuckleheads. So here are 12 things that are not happening with the A's. These are not opinions. Well, some are opinions, but they're not guesses. They're not speculation. They're conclusions drawn from facts and conversations with experts in the areas of sports, finance, hospitality, hotel, casino business. These are the brightest minds in Las Vegas and the world who have talked into my ears. I process it, dumb it down so that I can understand it, and then I dumb it up so that you can get on board with what I'm shoveling in your face. So number 1, this is the tough one because everybody else is saying different. The A's are not coming to Las Vegas. There's a caveat. They're not coming to Las Vegas while John Fisher owns the team. That is just a straight up fact. There's no evidence that John Fisher is going to put up his own money to build a ballpark. There's no evidence that they are going to get investors. There's no evidence of anything. And I think it's doubtful that they're even going to proceed to the point where they spend their $100 million to get the public funding. So let me repeat this again. The A's aren't coming to Las Vegas. They're probably going to stay in Sacramento where they're playing these 3 years. That's the likely scenario. However, if the team is sold, they could still come to Las Vegas, but there's still a lot of big ifs. But what's not an if is the A's are not coming to Las Vegas while John Fisher owns the team. Number 2, literally no one is buying a minority stake in the A's. So there was this recent story that, and it was kind of a weird one. It was in the New York Post that said the A's are going to start looking for investors to buy a 25% stake in the team for $500 million. So there's so many things that are wrong with that. One of those things is that the team is not worth $2 billion. It's worth $1.2 billion. So they're looking for an investor to buy a quarter stake in the team for $500 million. This probably should be a separate item. Nobody's going to lock in their money. Nobody's going to spend $500 million to be a minority owner of a crappy team that has no home and is unlikely to come to Vegas and is unlikely to have a ballpark. So, and what I've heard is there was a top secret meeting at Red Rock Casino recently where they were trying to get investors. Yet again, there have been no takers. There have been no takers to buy a stake in the team. There have been no takers from banks, financial institutions, anybody else who's willing to invest in this ridiculous project. Number 3, John Fisher is not selling his stock to finance anything. So the LVCVA, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, comes out and says financing's in place. What did they mean by that? They meant we looked at his paperwork and he has the wherewithal, the financial wherewithal, to contribute to building this ballpark. That's it. That's financing in place. That's utter nonsense. No, that's just not going to happen. He's not going to sell $1 billion in Gap stock and give 20% to the government. No wealthy person would ever do this. Financing is not in place. The LVCVA and the county commissioners and whoever else, I can't find any real cheerleaders other than them. There are no cheerleaders for the A's coming to Las Vegas. But whatever you've heard, that's horseshit. And it's probably how they're going to keep moving this deadline to submit the financial plan. That's how they're going to keep pushing it, kicking the can down the road, probably into the middle of 2025, when they're supposed to be building the thing. And by then, John Fisher will find a buyer for the team, and it will probably go to Sacramento. Number 4, nobody's lending money to John Fisher based on what I said, a delusional team valuation of $2 billion. The New York Post said that's 66% more than its value, $1.2 billion. I'm not good at math, but that sounds right. That's a lot more. $2 billion is a lot more than 1.2, which that's what the team is actually worth. So Fisher's going to financial institutions saying, I need financing for this ballpark, and he's valuing the team at $2 billion. Nobody thinks that's true. So he's never going to get anybody to contribute. No investors, no angel investors, no wacky, like Bitcoin billionaire is going to buy a portion of a team, especially if they have to work with his asshat. That's the technical term for John Fisher. Number 5, Bally's Corp. So Bally's Corp was the operator of the Tropicana. The land is owned by GLPI, Gaming Leisure Properties, Inc. Okay? Bally's Corp isn't building a resort on the Tropicana site. Let me repeat that again. Bally's Corp is not building a resort, it's not building anything on the Tropicana site. Bally's Corp does not have money. It's slightly different from John Fisher because he has the money. He's just not going to spend it on a ballpark. Bally's Corp doesn't have the money. They've sold everything of value that they have. All the land has been sold to GLPI. GLPI is actually financially investing in a Bally's Corp project in Chicago, but that's not what's happening in Las Vegas. They are tapped out. Bally's is not building a resort. It was so funny because they submitted a planning document. Bally's presented a planning document to the Clark County commissioners, right? They have to look at this over or whatever, stadium authority. The minute that I shared that rendering, Bally's Corp wrote to me and said, we want to be clear. That is not a realistic rendering. We just wanted to see if everything would fit on the site. I'm not joking. This sounds like a joke. It's not a joke. They create a rendering that they themselves have to distance themselves from within a 24-hour period of submitting the document. Number 6, Gaming and Leisure Properties, Inc. isn't saving the day. Nobody is saving the day. MGM Resorts is not saving the day. Major League Baseball is not saving the day. Nobody's saving the day. The LVCVA, Nevada legislators are not devoting another dollar to this imaginary product. What do I call it? Product? Yeah, product. Project. Nobody's swooping in. Everybody's like, MGM will swoop in and take over the project because they have 3 casinos right there. No. MGM Resorts doesn't build anything. They don't own anything anymore. They operate casinos. There's no miraculous thing that's going to swoop in and save the day. And People need to come to this. It's a reality check, really. I should make that part of my title for the blog. Number 7, nobody is building a ballpark, a major league ballpark, for $1.5 billion. This is something nobody in the local media has talked about, or anyone else, because everybody keeps talking about how are we going to finance a $1.5 billion ballpark. It's not going to be a $1.5 billion ballpark by the time this gets going. It's going to be $2 billion. Nothing's at the original price. The Sphere missed its projected budget by $1 billion. So we could be talking as much as $2.5 billion for this stupid thing. The cost, I've heard it described by a very reliable source who talks to the people who are involved with potentially building this imaginary ballpark. They have said that the cost is a moving target. A moving target, which means everything is whimsical and hypothetical, because the dollars that we're talking about from public funding, from these magical investors, from John Fisher's bank account, none of them are addressing the real cost of this project. That's because this project isn't happening, and it's not happening here in Las Vegas. Number 8, a resort built on the Trop site with 9 acres devoted to a ballpark would never be profitable. There is an FAA height limitation. Oh, did I mention the A's won't be paying rent? Before I forget, the A's are not paying rent. They're just taking these presumably 9 acres. Nobody's building a ballpark on 9 acres. Could it be done? Yes. Will it be done? No. Another asinine, whimsical thing that everybody's in denial about. But in if you're in that location, even with a big ballpark that's going to be drawing 30,000 people 80 times a year, shit, you can't make money because you can't build the hotel towers tall enough to increase your room revenue, which is a big factor of whether you're profitable or not. So, yes, down the road, potentially someday there's going to be a resort there, but it's not going to have 9 acres of the site devoted to a ballpark that is not paying rent. Number 9, nobody is building a ballpark on just 9 acres. That's an easy one. Number 10, no baseball team is drawing 30 to 33,000 fans a game in Las Vegas. No way is that happening. It's especially not happening with the A's, especially if it's under the ownership of John Fisher, because he's a terrible owner. Management is terrible. That is never going to happen. So all these numbers that are being pulled out of the butts of analysts like Jeremy, what's his name? Aguero, they're all just made up. And even if they did fill up this ballpark with 30,000 fans a game, that's not how baseball teams generate revenue. They generate revenue from broadcast rights. And I learned from a very reliable source. By the way, I don't know anything about any of the things I'm talking about, but I know really smart people. So broadcasting rights are valuable, which I never realized why sports are so valuable to media outlets. It's because it's the only thing we watch that's live, where you can't skip through the commercials because it's live. So when I had this moment of revelation, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes sense. That's where they get their revenue. Well, the A's, not the best team. Las Vegas, very small TV market, much bigger in Sacramento, much bigger in, what's that other place? Oakland. And everything's on the table if the team is sold. It could be Las Vegas, but all the conditions would have to change for that to happen. So what else? Oh, number 11, the ballpark isn't ending up at Rio. As I alluded to in the earlier part of the show, Oakview is building an NBA arena on the Rio site. So that's not even an option anymore. That was a pretty big deal that Dreamscape offered the A's that site for $1. Of course they passed on it because you got to be on the Strip, baby, where there's gridlock and chaos. Anyway, so here's number 12, the thing of 12 things that aren't happening with the A's, Bally's Corp, and Tropicana. Media outlets in Las Vegas are never going to stop regurgitating bullshit. The Las Vegas Review-Journal has, I know this isn't technically related to A's, but it's like the Review-Journal is like the publicity arm of the A's and Bally's Corp, because anything they're told, they just part and parcel. Is that a thing? Is it part and parcel? Part or parcel? Anyway, they pass it along. They just repackage it with quotes, and it's exact. And I'm telling you, these articles come out every single day about how the financing done. Bally's Corp is planning on having its hotels, multiple hotel towers, open in 2028 when the A's start playing in their new ballpark that doesn't exist. It's absolutely horrible. Our paper of record should be a national embarrassment to the RJ, to the Adelsons who own it, to our elected officials, to Las Vegas as a whole, to the 12 readers of the stupid RJ, because I have not seen a single story in the dozens of stories that says anything but that things are going smoothly, everything's happening, blah, blah, blah. Well, we will see if my facts are any match for their bullshit. Because, and so Steve Hill, he heads up the LVCVA. He's another one where I cannot tell you how many stories have come out with him saying, we're confident, we feel good. We feel good that things are in place. We looked over the paperwork, everything. I think the term he probably wanted to use was honky-dory, but he understands he's speaking to kind of maybe a younger audience. But let me tell you, not everything is honky-dory. I think there's going to be a lot of people who are surprised. There's finally a few journalists, national journalists, who are starting to pick up on this narrative of things aren't great in Vegas. It's not a done deal. Well, I've been hammering away at this since day one. I will be vindicated, and you will be able to listen to this episode. I guess if I'm wrong, I'll delete it, but there's no reason to think I'll be wrong. It is a clown show of unprecedented proportions, which is really saying something, because Las Vegas has a history of debacles where things have been announced, funded, not funded, partially funded. Dream started construction and has gone completely dormant. The Skyview, Observation Wheel, Echelon, Alon, like there's this, cannot forget AllNet. AllNet's amazing because not only was there a scam artist who was talking about AllNet for 10 years, there's a new group of developers who are also full of shit, and they're doing the exact same thing. So Vegas has a short memory. The success of casinos is based on optimism and short memories. So that is perfectly suited to this A's absolute nonsense. The Bally's Corp, delusional people involved. It's insane. I sometimes do think there are actual forces at work that are actually insane, because there's no explanation for why public officials, the LVCVA, local media, the A's are jerking our chain. Bally's Corp just seemed like they're just bumbling optimists, right? But the A's are actually screwing with Vegas because they're making promises, they're generating silly renderings, and they're doing this all in the hope that what they think is true. They want there to be people anxious to own a stake in the A's, and that will help finance the ballpark. They want to think that they are going to invest in it. It's going to be a huge success. They're going to be the Knights. They're going to be the Raiders. but they're not. These are completely different situations. The NBA team is going to slay. And I think there's a really good chance that there will be an NBA team that starts playing in a brand new arena on the Rio site before we get a Major League Baseball team up and running in Las Vegas. I think if somebody buys the A's, there's still a chance that something could happen. I don't think Bally's Corp would be involved anymore because they don't have the wherewithal to build anything. But if there's a new owner and everybody starts rallying around the A's, you'll get more local support. I see nothing at the moment, no support for the A's as they currently exist. But you'll start seeing some momentum. And I think with a new owner who has actual intentions of investing in a ballpark, that could still happen, I guess. But we're talking about years of all of this shaking out. And the vast majority of that time, the Tropicana site is going to be a parking lot. And that's only if GLPI decides that it's going to pay for the paving. Because I think they paid for the fireworks and the drones when the Tropicana was demolished. And man, has there been another casino closure since we talked? Oh, the Mirage. Holy cow. Like I said, nothing has happened since we talked last. But this is what everybody's talking about. You know I hate sports. I hate them as much as cigars, maybe more. But if people want to talk about this crap, you know I'm not invested in sports. I'm invested in Las Vegas. Las Vegas not being screwed with. I'm invested in the conversation. And I'm selfless.